So let's start with the IT controls. There are two general types of IT controls. We have the general and the application. When we say general control, it pertains to the entity-wide computer environment. So such controls include over the data centers, organization databases, systems development, and program maintenance. When we say application control, it ensures the integrity of specific systems such as sales order processing, accounts payable, and payroll applications. So, kana mga systems like samples of applications kay kana mga QuickBooks, SAP, di ba? Unsa man mga controls na silang system. So, man yung application control. Then, general controls is entity-wide na siya. Now, let's go to the 6 types of physical controls or the physical controls. Physical controls relates, again, as mentioned, primarily to the human activities employed in the accounting system. So, these activities may be purely manual, such as physical custody of assets, or they may involve the physical use of computers to record transactions or update accounts. Physical controls do not relate to the computer logic that actually performs accounting tasks. Munang lahi siya sa imuhang IT controls. Rather, they relate to the human activities that trigger and utilize the results of those tasks. So, ang katong sa actual processing good information is ato siya ni IT controls. However, diba, ang katong user nimo sa imuhang kanang IT system is alin na siya mo fall under sa imuhang physical control. So, in other words, physical controls focus on people but are not restricted to an environment in which clerks update paper accounts with pen and ink. So, virtually all systems, regardless of their sophistication, employ human activities that need to be controlled. So, we'll be discussing these 6 types, which is transaction authorization, segregation of duties, supervision, accounting records, access control, and independent verification. So, let's start with the transaction control. Transaction authorization. So, the purpose of transaction authorization is to ensure that all material transactions processed by the information system are valid and in accordance with management's objectives. So, authorization may be general or specific. When we say general, it is granted to operation personnel to perform day-to-day operations. So, an example of which is that the authority or when a person is authorized to purchase inventory from a vendor when the inventory level is at a predetermined reorder point. So, that is part of your general. So, kana apis sa imong operations ba? Then, your specific authority is dealing with case-to-case decisions, so mo ng non-routine transactions associated with, again, kanang mga special or unique nga mga transactions. So, examples of which include when there is a decision to extend a particular customer's credit limit beyond the normal amount. So, meaning, specific authority is needed sa imuhang operations or sa imuhang transaction. So, mo nanay special na authority either sa imuhang management baron. So, kana siya, mo na imuhang transaction authorization. So, again, it deals with who has the authority to do the task. O, diba? Or who has the authority to approve the task or katong mga transactions nimo. Next control is the segregation of duties. So, in segregation of duties, diba, there are 2 manual o computerized system. Now, in a manual system, separations should be kanang 3. Authorizing, lahi dapat ang tig-authorize, lahi dapat ang nai-custody, o ang nag-record keep sa asset, o ang nagbuhat sa imuhang subtask. So, again, when we talk about segregation, this is important so that you can minimize incompatible functions And then, segregation of duties can take many forms depending on the specific duties to be controlled. So, kana siyang imuhang timailhan sa imuhang segregation of duties. So, again, lahi ang tao nga mobuhat sa authorizing, lahi ang tao nga naay custody sa imuhang assets, lahi ang tao nga nag-record sa imuhang assets. Kaya again, di ba, if isa ra ka person ang gabuhat na tanan, if you go back to our fraud triangle, dito na tumukam-in nga mudako ang imuhang opportunity. So, di ba, balik ta sa fraud triangle again, mo increase ang imuhang opportunity if there is no segregation of duties. So, mo na siya. Then, in a computerized system, mo na siya, there should be separation sa nag-code sa program, lahi pod ang nag-process, then lahi pod ang maintenance. So, mo na siya ang dapat nimong hinumduman. So, again ha, sa segregation, is tulo na siya. Among hinumduman, lahi ang nag-authorize, lahi ang nag-custody, meaning custody kinsay nag-hold sa imuhang asset, then lahi pod ang nag-record. So, meaning, example, custody, arita sa authorizing, usually, naman sa ito mga management, diba? Or ka mga managers. Custody, for example, ka na ito mga warehouse in charge, diba? So, na-form part na siya sa imuhang custody. Na imuhang record keeping, kaya na mo come in ang kanang sa imuhang mga accountants, diba? So, ara na sila sa imuhang record keeping. Now, next, your next control is your supervision. Supervision comes in or as important because it is a compensating control. Again, supervision is a compensating control. Compensation for the lack of segregation. So, diba, if you are a small company, diba, dili ba ka maka-delegate og task? Kaya again, gamay raman mo. So, one person may be doing multiple tasks. So, pwede nga siya ang ga-custody, siya po ang record keeping. Pero, para naagya po yung internal control, there is supervision, meaning there is active involvement sa imuhang managers sa mga transactions nga nahitabo sa imuhang company. So, maskin isa ra ka person ang nagbuhat og multiple tasks, imuha gyud pong i-check nga sakto ba iyang gibuhat nga task for task A, sakto ba sa iyang gibuhat for task B, like wala ba colluding na nahitabo or wala ba overlapping na nahitabo. So mo na supervision pertains to the active involvement of the management. Now, accounting records let's go back. So, accounting records of an organization provides an audit trail, which we already discussed in our previous chapter, katong chapter 2. So, kabaw na mo sa audit trail, no? Katong na source document, padong sa imuhang padong sa imuhang financial statements, or pwede pabali financial statements to your source document. So, everything should be recorded or dapat na-educate trail, either paper trail or kanang sa imuhang system na trail. Then, another control is the access controls. So, the purpose of your access control is to ensure that only authorized personnel have access to the firm's assets. So, unauthorized access exposes assets to misappropriation, damage, and theft. Therefore, access controls play an important role in safeguarding assets. Access to assets can be direct or indirect. So, when we say physical access, for example, nadyo'y lock ang ato ang mga warehouse, di ba? Nadyo'y mga locks or natay mga vaults for our cash, ana siya, or natay mga security systems in place. Now, for the system pod nga access is pwede na yung mga passwords. So, those limit or those are forms of your access control. And then last is the independent verification. Now, these independent verification procedures are independent checks of the accounting system to identify errors and misrepresentations. Now, verifications differ from supervision because it takes place after the fact by an individual who is not directly involved with the transaction or task being verified. So, si supervision is dapat kato directly involved man siya. So, independent verification is either pwede siya third party in the form of like auditors. So, di ba, they review batch totals or reconcile subsidiary accounts with control accounts. So, through independent verification procedures, management can assess the performance of individuals, the integrity of the transaction processing system, and the correctness of data contained in accounting records. Now, kani siya ang katong example of a control objectives for transactions. So, for instance, di ba, if gamay lang kag tao is lahi ang authorization, niya lahi pod ang processing, pero at least separate siya. And then diri is kato dapat is naa siya'y or dapat diri sa control objective 1 is ma-emphasize siya di mo nga lahi gyud ang mo-authorize sa transaction o ang sa mo-process sa transaction. Muna siya, separate yun sila. Muna siya sa segregation of duties niya. So, for example, the purchasing department should initiate purchases while the inventory control department gives authorization. So, si internal control, not internal control, but si inventory control ang mo-authorize kay hanggang sila man ang nag-request. If maka-remember mo ato sa katon transaction processing, sila ang ga-request, 'di ba? And then mo ato ni purchasing, and then ang goods is maato man sa gihapon balik ni inventory or ni inventory manager, 'di ba? So kana siya lahi ang tig-authorize, lahi pod ang tig-process gid sa actual purchasing. Now another example is kato akong gi-mention nga lahi ang responsible for the authorization, lahi ang responsible for the custody, ug lahi ang responsible for the recording. So, muna ako ni-mention ganiha. And then, another is, if ari ka sa imong financial nga side, di ba, lahi ang control sa imong journals, lahi ang tig-record sa imong journals, lahi pod ang naay access sa imong subsidiary ledgers, or tig-update sa imong subsidiary ledgers, and lahi pod ang tig-date sa imong general ledger. So, kana siya, these are examples of segregating or para ma-identify nimo or ma-achieve nimo ang katong objective through segregation of duties. Now, if we put on the physical controls in IT context, meaning katong na application na sa IT, no? For example, transaction authorization, the rules are often embedded within the computer programs or nanatay EDI or JIT, wherein JIT just in time, na automated reordering of inventory without human intervention. So, kani siya is naka-integrate na ang system ni supplier o ni company. So, mo na siya nga, automated na siya. Like, naray i-click si part sa company, and then once iha na ng click, mo automatic nga mo appear siya sa system ni supplier. So, si supplier is makadawat na siya automatically nga, hala na ay purchase order baron si company. So, kana siya is, ang authorization is na-happen ra siya through the system ra. So, again, na-integration between the system of the two companies. Next is segregation of duties. So, a computer program may perform many tasks that are deemed incompatible. Thus, the crucial need to separate program development, program operations, and program maintenance. So, muna na yung katong mention ganihan, no? Then, next is the supervision. So, the ability to assess competent employees become more challenging due to the greater technical knowledge required. So, kani siya is, since we are already dealing with information technology, dili tanang person is naay capacity to directly understand the system itself. Mauna nga, it is important nga kung ikaw mag-supervise is dapat na kay knowledge pod sa kung unsa na ang nahitabo sa imuhang system. So, mo na siya. Dapat maskin nag-rely ka sa system is makasabot gyapon ka sa unsay process nga agian. para matarong nimo supervise. And the next is the accounting records. So ledger accounts and sometimes source documents are kept magnetically. So no audit trail is readily apparent or nana siya sa system nimo. And then next, access controls. Data consolidation exposes the organization to computer fraud and excessive losses from disaster. So again, kay tungod na naman siya sa imuhang system. So ang imuhang problema na lang yun is how to heighten the controls para dili ra maskin kinsa ang maka-access sa imong system kay uso ba ang kanang mga hacking, di ba? So kana siya mo na ang kailangan dapat ma-heighten or ma-tighten ang control sa imuhang business. And then lastly is the independent verification. So when tasks are performed by the computer rather than manually, the need for an independent check is not necessary. Katungod na may existence or na may usage of internal information technology. However, the programs themselves are checked. So, kani siya, ang i-check nimo is kato ng program. Dili na gyud sa katong task nga gibuhat sa program. So, ang kuno na nimo is ang output ba sa program is mo ba gyud ang imuhang kailangan. So, mo na ang imuhang kailangan i-verify nimo if sakto ba ang output. If kani nga task ang buhaton sa program, sakto ba yung output nga ihatag. So, that ends chapter 3.